So my name is Mario, as Chris mentioned, and this is my 9th year with doing sessions at the IT camp. Always great to come back and present sessions. First time 100% virtually online, so this is a little bit different. Recognize some familiar names, and for some of you, this may be your first time as part of the IT camp, so welcome. And we have, from what I'm seeing in the chat, visitors from across the world as well, so thank you for coming. So I am going to share my screen and talk a little bit about Flipgrid, and we are going to kind of move back and forth a little bit between what I'm sharing on my screen in terms of a Google slide presentation. This will be posted on the Summer Learning Academy website, so this will be available to you, but I can also post a link in the chat as well, and if anybody wanted it sooner rather than later. And we're going to be working on Flipgrid as well. So depending on what device you're on, you may want to open up another tab or another window, and you can have flipgrid.com opened up, and we'll kind of, because we're going to actually get in there and look at a few things. And for some of you, this may be your first time jumping in there and creating something in Flipgrid. So we want to hopefully have some time to do that as well. So I'm just going to share my screen, and Chris, I know you'll let me know if anything sound-wise or not showing pops up. And just pop up over here. So hopefully that's coming on your screens. So like as I did mention, you can we're going to work between the two tabs here. And if any of you are on Twitter, feel free to tweet about the Summer Learning Academy, and hopefully they'll pick up those tweets and retweet them, and you can share your learning and things that are happening along the way. So for those that aren't familiar, Flipgrid is kind of one of those tools. If you kind of get hooked into a tool or an app and it's really good and you kind of start using it and it's free, of course these companies need to make money, and then they kind of come out with a paid platform and a free version and things like that. Flipgrid is one of the rare ones that's been opposite. It was a paid version originally, then got bought out by Microsoft, and is now free. So it's a really great tool. Just some benefits in terms of like universal design for learning. It has some built-in accessibility features, which are great. It's a multimodal tool. And what I mean by that, there's no real one way of using it or coming at it. You can come at it at different angles. And you're going to see today there's so many different uses across different subjects. Kind of ties into student engagement. So depending on what grade level you teach, you probably have students that are kind of connected into YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, things like that. I'm not here to say those are, top-notch teaching platforms, but it is something that they're kind of in their culture and their day-to-day lives. So there's a lot of things within Flipgrid that let you do like filters and things like that kind of can get that look of a Snapchat or a TikTok. So there's some engagement pieces in there and things that they could relate to that you can use with Flipgrid. As I did mention, it's cross-curricular, so I've seen it. There hasn't been a subject I have not seen it used in, and especially during our time in e-learning or remote learning, there was a lot of different ways it was being used in every class. I kind of have here, I don't want to say anything is easy to use, because if it's your first time kind of jumping into it, there's a lot of buttons, different settings that you can get into. So it is, you might think at the beginning it is overwhelming. Once you kind of jump in there and use it a little bit, there is, a little bit of an ease factor with it. But at first it will be a lot of stuff in there. But then once you start using it, it gets easier as you go. And it's a great tool for formative assessment. So it's another great way that you can use Flipgrid. So like I said, Flipgrid, what it can do, it's more than just, from what you may know about it, is really the base of it is where you can post a question, some kind of topic, and students can respond through video. And then you can reply to them, give comments. So there's lots of ways you can use Flipgrid. So it's, giving video feedback, reflections. You can do discussions, have a message board. There's a built-in whiteboard, so you don't necessarily always have to be on screen with your camera. You can display a sort of a virtual whiteboard. So students could be talking and recording their voice while they're maybe explaining a math problem, or maybe you can bring up a picture and you can annotate over the picture. So maybe they're talking that way. So there's lots of different ways it can be used. So like I said, you could do some screencasting. You can do stop motion animation. I put that in there because you can do it with Flipgrid. It probably wouldn't be my first choice of a tool to use for stop motion animation. There's better tools out there, but I'm just sort of putting that out there. And then there's things called app smashing. What that is, where Flipgrid combines with other apps, and I'll show you a list of that soon, where you can use Flipgrid and another app, integrate those two together and kind of make it more powerful and dynamic. And best of all, it's fully moderated. And so what I mean by that is you can set it. Now, it's not an initial setting, so I'm going to show that as well. The default setting is not to be moderated. But what that means is if you post a topic for your students, you just want to talk about, it could be something like, yeah, hey, how was your weekend? Or tell me a little bit about your summer when you come back in the fall. They can record themselves giving a reply, but you have to approve it first before it kind of gets put out there for others to see. So that's a tool that's a setting you have to turn on, though. It's not on by default, but that's a good thing. So if you are worried about what students might be putting out there, you can see it first before anybody else does. And then, if there is something that you can go back to the student and say, can you maybe modify your response, or even in the sense, not necessarily something bad, maybe they just didn't really get the sense of the topic you posted or the question, and you just need them to kind of go back. You're giving them some feedback of a way that they can kind of re-record it and add more detail. So next week, there's a ton of new features coming to Flipgrid. So if anybody is on Twitter, or if you sign up for an account on flipgrid.com, you're going to probably get monthly emails about updates and things like that. So these are I'm just going to highlight, there's way more features out there, but these are some things that are coming in. So there's going to be new boards, and what that is are backgrounds. So you can have graph paper. You can also do split screen recording. So you could have yourself on half the screen, the other half of the screen is maybe a photo or something, and you could be kind of talking about what's in the picture and things like that. So right now, we're going to look at this as well. So one of the features is when you create a Flipgrid and you want to put it out to your students, you have to indicate what sort of email domains are out there. So when we create them, we have to indicate that anybody, like say at genespes.ca, can access this Flipgrid. You can now, well, next week, you'll be able to do it by individual email. So I could maybe just send it, put somebody's individual email there, or maybe to a parent if you're doing this with younger students and they don't have their Google accounts yet. So you can do single email access, which is something you can't really do right now. There's different things like more fonts, filters, stickers, so kind of that thing I was talking about with kind of TikTok-ish things. There's an enhanced grid view. I haven't seen that yet, so I just saw that as an update, so I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I guess an easier way to sort of see your layout. You can do private comments. So right now, when you comment on things, they're pretty much visible to anybody who's within that Flipgrid, so you can make them more private. And then more app smashing. So there's going to be more apps that it integrates with, and then there's a ton more updates. So I just kind of wanted to highlight those in case you ask questions about, hey, can you invite a single parent or a single student to a Flipgrid? That's coming. So I just wanted to highlight those there. So a couple thoughts before we jump in looking at Flipgrid. So remember, it's about the task, not the tool. And Chris is in my session now, so he kind of mentions this a lot too, and I picked that up from him. So when we're looking at Flipgrid, we're going to look at different ways to use it, but that doesn't mean that's the tool you have to use. You might know of a better tool. You don't have your students yet, but you will know your students better when you come back in the fall. So you might know Flipgrid might work for some and not for others. So you can kind of gauge, how you want to use Flipgrid. Start with your comfort level. Okay, so like I said, start where you're comfortable. If you feel you're going to need to moderate at the beginning, there's no problem with that. Moderate it. And then once you start using it, mix it up. So I'm going to give you lots of different ways that you can use Flipgrid. So try to mix it up, because if you're saying I'm going to do Flipgrid and do maybe weekly check-ins with my students, which is a great way to use Flipgrid. But if you do that week after week, and then maybe after the 20th week of doing that, Flipgrid might get old and tired for them. And then what they're putting into it might not be what you want to be getting out of it. So we're going to look at different ways to use it. So mixing it up is good as well. And another thing that I always do, you can practice with a colleague or even yourself. So we'll kind of go through it. I can create a topic in Flipgrid, and then there's an option that says show as student, something like that along those lines. And you kind of go through what you create as a student and record yourself or whatever it is you want to do. So you can practice. The Flipgrid isn't put out there until you kind of share the link out with people. So again, create it for yourself, do it yourself, or just share it with a colleague, have them go through it. And another thing too, mistakes will happen and they can all be easily fixed. So I know, like I said, the moderating part is kind of the big one that I always get emails about, where teachers put out a topic and then they say, oh, the students could all see each other's responses. Yeah, because that is the default, but you can go back and turn that on. You know, there would be a few that maybe got through, but again, nothing that's gonna be, earth shattering. So there's 3 parts to a Flipgrid. One is you create your grid. So grid is kind of like your big theme. So you could have grids like on math, language arts, art, phys ed, whatever it might be, like some kind of like a bigger topic. And then within each grid, you have your topics. So I could have a math grid, and within math, I might have something on mental math, something on math in everyday life, would you rather questions, so some things like that. So you can kind of, so grid is kind of the big sort of overarching topic. I don't want to say topic because topic's not big overarching theme, and then topic are the parts that sort of come into that. And then the third part is where students share. So they're creating a video with themselves in it, they're just talking, they're maybe sharing their screen, whatever it might be. That's sort of the 3 parts to it. And again, I'm going to share this slide deck with you, but there's tons. I'm going to mention a lot of these different ways you can use Flipgrid, and here's just kind of a quick list depending on where you teach. And it's not necessarily have to be between teachers and students. I've seen some staff that have done sort of, ways to meet the staff. They just create Flipgrids of themselves, talking about themselves. You can do it engaging with parents, and we'll kind of talk about ways to do that as well. So it doesn't always have to be between teacher and student. All right, I'm going to kind of skip over these parts here because we're going to actually do this together where we kind of go through and create a Flipgrid. So I'm just going to kind of advance a little bit here, but I have included these in the slide deck just so you have the steps for you as well. But I do want to talk about something here. So I am going to flip over to Flipgrid right now because there's something in Flipgrid called a Disco library. And Disco is just short for discovery. So these are kind of topics that teachers have created and put out there for others to use. Right? So I'm just going to kind of show that here. So I'm going to kind of flick my tab over here. And maybe what we'll do is, if you are going to kind of follow along and you have Flipgrid open, I'll give you a chance here. You can go to flipgrid.com if you haven't already. And you can go in and sign in. If you haven't created an account before, I think there's either an educator sign in or educator login or educator sign up. So it kind of might depend on where you're at. While we're doing that, this may be a time as well if you do have any questions. And we're going to kind of jump in and start looking at Flipgrid here. So I'll give you a sec if you want to follow along to join up here. And I'll kind of back up just to show you here where we're at. So if you sign in, if it's your first time signing in, you'll probably have a fairly blank area here. I have some grids and stuff created because I've used Flipgrid fairly regularly. So it's going to look different for everyone. So aside from my slide deck I share with you, when you log into Flipgrid, there's a getting starting guide as well that you can kind of go through. So I'm just going to kind of go in. So before we kind of go in and jump in and start creating with Flipgrid, it was the Disco library here that I was talking about. So this is another great way that maybe you want to get started with Flipgrid. You're just not sure how to do it, but maybe somebody else created something and that you think, yeah, this would be pretty cool to use. So I'm just going to click on Disco library up top here. And when I jump into the Disco library, there's going to be kind of different things popping up here. It's going to be a fairly busy screen here. There's something here called Flipgrid Weekly Hits. These are kind of like new ones that were just released that maybe people are using a lot, so they're kind of more popular. Along the top, there's different themes, okay, and I can kind of scroll around. So there's things about equity and diversity, things related to specific apps. So if any of you like use Epic books, there's some Flipgrids related to Epic books. Or if you use code.org, Hour of Code resources, there's some Flipgrids related specifically to that resource. So as I scroll down, again, there's different themes down here as well. Now, this is an American product, so you might see things like this, National World War II Museum of New Orleans. Okay, so there will be some content there, but it is used across the world, so there will be, worldwide sort of type Flipgrids created as well. But really down here is where I'm talking about the Disco library. So there's, as you can see right here, there's 23,000 resources created by teachers that have shared them within this Disco library. Okay, and I mean, it is a little bit hit or miss. You can see, well, let's see, I'm going to kind of type something in here. So there's different filters you can search. So I can search up by subject, and let's say, actually, I'm going to search by topic. Let's say I want to find something on fractions. So once that goes in there, I'll hit enter. And now I'll find a bunch of Flipgrids that have been created on fractions, but you still notice I still have almost 5,000 different topics that are created. So I could go in and filter a little more, like I could search by grade level, search if it's fractions related to a specific subject, maybe specific in math. But as I go through, I get a list. Okay, so you see they're all pretty much called fractions, so that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I do get a little bit of indication over here on the right. It tells me like how many times somebody has used this resource and how many times people have favorited it. So that does give me a little bit of insight. So if I see something here where it says, oh, it's been used 336 times, favorited by 88 people, maybe there is some good content there. But the good thing about it is you can take any of these and you can edit them. So you might like what they created, but maybe there's one part of it, there's language they use in math and some part of the world that we don't use here in Nova Scotia. So you like the Flipgrid, but the language they use isn't sort of terminology use, so you can go in and edit all that. So anything you find here, let's say I want to use this fractions one, I can just click on it. It'll pop up here. It'll give me a little, it's really what they create. So it gives me a little preview. It's saying Josie added 3/4 and 5/8 and got 8/10 as her answer. Please help Josie figure out what she did incorrectly. So it's a math problem that students are going to explain why it's wrong and maybe give a right answer here. Okay. So what you can do is if I like this, okay, but maybe I want to change the fractions up. Maybe I don't like 3/4 and I can barely, my eyes are so bad. I think that says 5/6. My eyes are so bad. Getting to that age, I can take this. So right now it says select a grid. So if I have any grids created, I can open this up and these are all the grids I have created. Okay. So I can add it to anything I wanted to. So if I like this one, I can say I'm going to add it to, I really don't have a math grade one. Well, if I don't have a math grade one, maybe I'm going to add, I'll have to create that grid first and I'll show you how to do that. But I can add this to any of my grids and just hit add, and it will be part of my collection now. So I don't have to go and find this anymore. Once I go to flipgrid.com, log in, I have this now, and I can go in and edit it and do what I want with it. So that's just an easy way that you can go in and find topics here that maybe you're just not sure about, or maybe you just want, I need something for science, just to get ideas. You might not actually use them, but maybe it'll just give you some ideas that you can create your own as well. All right. So what we'll do is we're going to kind of jump in and look at Flipgrid. So I am going to kind of go through the steps, and then we'll do that. And then we'll talk a little bit about, I'm going to share some activities you can do. A lot of them to kind of kick off the year with your students, but ones that you can do at any point in the year as well. So again, if there's any questions, put them in the chat. Chris will pick those up for me, or you can unmute yourself and ask me away as well. So I'm going to kind of jump in. I'm going to go back to, I'm just going to click on Flipgrid here. It'll take me back to the main screen here. So like I said, Flipgrid is divided into sort of three parts where you have your grid, which is kind of the big theme, the topic, which is what you specifically want your students to do, and then the student side of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here where it says add a new grid. Okay. And also, yes, Chris did mention at the beginning as well that this is being recorded. So if you're not following along right now, this is all being recorded and you can view this later on to work your way through it. So I'm just going to click here and do an add a new grid. So once you click add a new grid, there's a couple of important settings here. Okay. And I'm going to kind of explain them. So the first one here, you're going to have to name your grid. So I didn't have a math grid when I was trying to get that fraction. I'm going to call this one math. Okay. I'm just going to give it a title. Now, this is a fairly important part here. So in Flipgrid, you have to decide if you're doing it with students, or whoever you're doing it with, how are they going to access it? So one thing with Flipgrid, though, is that you have to log in to access Flipgrid. It's not like an open link where people can just click on it and record. So you have to log in some way. So there's a couple ways. I usually do school email because you could just indicate that at genespes.ca anyone can access, which would be students using, or if you're in CSAP, your SEPNE address. So you can indicate a sort of a domain to use. The middle one here, and I do know some teachers have done this with lower elementary students, you can create IDs, student IDs for your students. So maybe if they're not quite set up on Google, or maybe it's, you're teaching grade primary and just not at that point yet early on in the year, you can create usernames, but you have to create them. So it is a little bit of work on your end, where you can just create a username and password and give that to the student. So it's kind of really up to you. Then this one here is a little bit more open, but it's kind of with really any email address. So you would use this last one if you're opening this up to parents, community members, things like that. But generally with students or staff, I would stick to school email. And when I click that, I'm just going to highlight it there. And right away, it actually gives me a link here. So I have a link here called flipgrid.com/leftdraws4782. So this link here, I could actually give this link out right now to anybody, and they could click on it, sign in, and join this grid. Now I have nothing in it, so they wouldn't really see anything, but that's essentially what happens here. So this this grid is already created. So I'm just going to hit next. So you notice, because I clicked school email, it's asking me which school email. So it has to be a Microsoft or Google email. Ours is Google. So I just put, all you do is just type in. So I can just put at, oops, let's put that right. Let's say I want to add this one as well. I could add any of these as well. Okay, so you can add whatever domains you want. And once you do it once, it stays for you. So I've already added this and it always pops up for me. Okay. So I just indicate anybody at genespes.ca is going to be able to access my Flipgrid. If they don't, then they can't access my Flipgrid. So it's kind of one sort of level of security you can have. So I'm just going to hit next. And there we go. My grid is ready. Okay, so my grid that I've created called Math is ready. Anybody can access it that has a Google account and that I give this link to. Again, nothing's in there. You have some options. Like I could click this link here that says share to classroom. So I could share this directly to my Google Classroom. And then students wouldn't have to like copy this link down or anything. If I'm using Google Classroom, that link would be in there. They could click that link and join from there. Okay. There's a few other things. There's the share on Remind. I know some teachers may use Remind as a communication tool. Something here called Microsoft Teams that I know not a whole lot of people are using. And then you could also embed if you're copying on our website. But I could copy this link right here or share to classroom. So I've created my math grid. Now within my math grid, I'm going to want to create a topic. All right. So I'm going to click here where it says go to your grid. All right. So this is my math grid here. Okay. Now, I forgot about this. I said there's nothing in it. There actually is. So every time you create a new grid in Flipgrid, there's going to be a default sort of topic here called Say Hello on Flipgrid. It always does that. Okay. Flipgrid always does that. You don't have to use it. Okay. So I could do things like if I click here on the green thing, I could hide it. I could make it hidden, because if I give somebody this math link here, this Flipgrid code, they would actually see this and think they have to click on this and say hello to me. So I could hide it. There are other actions here to delete it as well. So you can go through, I can go here and delete the topic. It's saying, do I permanently want to delete it? Yes. Oops. Okay. So if you can leave it there, it's really up to you, but I've deleted it. So it's really, no harm, no foul. Now, the other thing is if you do delete something, you can't get it back. There's no undo button like in a lot of our tools. So if I had videos there with students created stuff and I deleted that, then I would lose all that. Okay. So it did give me a warning at the beginning before I did it, but I don't really need it. So I have my math grid. I want to create a topic. So maybe I want to sort of get some access, some prior knowledge of the students. Maybe we're going to do some fractions, and I want to get a sense of what do they know about fractions or improper fractions, whatever it might be. So I'm going to go here now, and I'm going to add a new topic. Okay, so math is my grid, sort of the big theme. And now within math, I'm going to create a new topic. And now this is where a lot of the, you have a few more options of what you want to do. So first things first, you have to give your topic a name. Okay, so like I said, math is the big theme. And here I want to just, what do you know about fractions? Okay, I just want to kind of get a sense of what they know. Now, that's the title. The next here is you have a prompt, okay? So the student would see this, what do they know about fractions, but I'm not really telling them what they need to do. So in this prompt here, I can type some written directions, okay? Now, on the student side of it, which I'll show you, there is an immersive reader. So you could type in your text, and then there'll be a button for them to click and have that read back to them, okay? So if you have students that could use that, that's one of the sort of the UDL tools that are embedded within Flipgrid. So here I just want to say, I'm going to just type something in here. So I would like to know what you know about fractions. I should check my spelling too. Where do you see fractions in something basic like this? Okay, I'm gonna correct that. Oh, I'd like to know what you know about fractions. It's not really a question. Where do you see fractions in everyday life? Okay, so something like that. You can, as you notice, I could type up to 1,000 characters, so I'm just putting something basic just for a time. Now, these next two spots here are really important, okay? So the first thing I said, video moderation is by default off. So this is entirely what you're comfortable with, what you want to do with your students. So I'd say if it's your very first time with Flipgrid, you might want to moderate it. Okay, it kind of depends. Like you know your students, so it's really up to you. And then this one here, recording time. So whether they're recording themselves, they're recording their screen and explaining something, you have to provide how long are they able to talk for. It doesn't mean they have to fill in that whole time. So again, no right or wrong way. I always go on the sort of the side of caution. I always give really more time than I want them to use. So if it's something like, where do they see fractions in everyday life? Maybe in a minute, 2 minutes, they can kind of, tell me a little bit about fractions and things like that. Just keep in mind, if I leave this at 1 minute and 30 seconds, once they hit that minute 30 second mark, it cuts them off. Okay, so they would, if they didn't finish, they'd have to re-record. But at the same time, if you can give up to 10 minutes. If I give up to 10 minutes, I just want to be clear with my students. I don't need you talking 10 minutes about where you see fractions in everyday life. Okay, so sometimes just be clear with them what maybe indicate. Just maybe say talk for a minute or two, but you have up to 10 minutes just as a precaution. But again, kind of really what works for you. So I'll just leave it at 2 minutes because really I don't really need them to talk more than 2 minutes. So I have my prompt, which is the question. I have my moderation on. I'm going to let them record up to 2 minutes. And like I said, recording doesn't necessarily have to be them in front of the screen. And now you can add a focus. So what that means is if I wanted to sort of add more to them, just be able to read this or have this read to them, I could record myself in this option, record a video of me explaining what I want to do. Maybe I give an example of what I mean by a fraction in everyday life. Or I can insert a YouTube video. Maybe there's a YouTube video I found that talks about fractions in everyday life, or an image. It's really up to you. So as you can see, when I was talking about sort of that app smashing aspect of Flipgrid, there are some other apps you could integrate within Flipgrid. So I could put a Kahoot in here if anybody uses Kahoot. I could insert a Google Doc or use Wakelet, whatever it might be. So it's really up to you. Okay. Now, normally what I do, I usually just record myself explaining it in a little bit more detail about what I want students to do, or I give an example, especially if it's something you want students to screencast or something. Maybe you want to show a picture of something, what they should be kind of, an exemplar or something. It's really up to you. I'm not going to actually do this right now because I find one thing not really Flipgrid related, but because I'm using my camera and my mic on this Google Meet, I find once I open another app and I need Flipgrid to access my camera and my mic, things get a little wonky because I have two apps trying to kind of pick up my camera and my mic. So I won't do this at the moment. But really, so it's up to you what you want to put in here. Okay, you can leave it blank. Maybe just what I wrote here is sufficient enough for my students to be able to do that. But depending on the grade level, depending on the range of your students, what supports they need, you might want to add another sort of extra prompt in there to sort of help them out. So that's kind of the basic settings. There are a few more options down here that are hidden. I'll just kind of quickly highlight them. So again, you could add a topic tip. I don't really use that a whole lot. The only other one that I maybe consider sometimes is you can set end dates. So if this was a Flipgrid I want students to complete, I could set an end date, but you know, you can always leave that open. And then down here, these are just little things here, like they could edit their video. So if they're recording and then maybe they have another recording, they want to put the two together, they can kind of edit and trim things and do like that. And then this one here I usually leave off, allow students to like other student videos just to sort of get a, you know, not get involved in that sort of thing. This one here is the one that you may want to turn off again if you're really new to Flipgrid, allowing student-to-student replies. So the default is that is on. So what that means is in my topic, a student could talk about fractions of everyday life. If I have it moderated, I could say, yeah, that was a good video. I'm going to open it up. And then now anybody in the class, they'll still be able to see the video, but they having that on allows them to then record a reply to that video. So again, it depends. If it's a discussion, a debate or something you're doing, that's fine. You might want to have that on. But if it's just something I would just want my students to just talk about, I usually just turn that off. So essentially, I have my fractions topic created, and then I'm going to click here that says create topic. And so you'll notice now I'm going to get a different link here. Okay, so this link is different because this is a topic within my grid of math. So math had one big, my overarching thing. I could create more topics within math. So I could have this fractions everyday life. Then maybe I'm going to have some mental math. Then maybe I'm going to do something like that one that said, explain to me why this fraction is wrong or the addition of fractions is wrong. So I could have 3 or 4 topics within math. If I give that link to the topic, that means students will be able to access all, sorry, if I give the link to that grid, which is the math, they will be able to see every single topic within there. Or I could just give this link here, which is direct them only to this, this one about fractions. So I'm just going to click all set. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is, I'm just going to go back to my activity here for a sec. Oh, sorry, my grids. I just want to show you what it looks like for the student. Okay, so student would come into something like this. As you notice where it says add a topic focus, I don't have anything there. Here's a button here for the Immersive Reader. I'm not going to click that because, again, with the mic settings, but the student could click on that and it would read my directions here to them. Okay, so that's what that does. You notice I have 0 responses because no students have done that. So I could, as a student, they would click on record a response. And now it prompts them onto this page. So now you notice it says Flipgrid wants to use your camera and microphone. I'm just going to not do that right now because things will get wonky. So you notice, oh, it's not going to let me do that. It's going to force me to do it. So things might get a little wonky for a sec here. Let me just see. So you notice this is the screen that the students see. All right. So you notice up the top right, it says 2 minutes because that's the 2-minute time limit I gave them. This one here, this little button here just shows the topic again. So it just brings up the question. It doesn't have the Immersive Reader in this part, but it just lets them remind them what it is. Then they have a whole bunch of features and options here. Okay, so they could add a sticky note. They could just click record themselves. There's things where they could bring up a board, a whiteboard, and they could annotate over the board. They could bring in text. So there's a whole bunch of things they can do. These are the filters that I was talking about. You can do different filters, whole slew of things they can do. Okay. So in my case, I just wanted students to be able to tell me a little bit about fractions in everyday life. So a student, I'm going to try this. So it might not go well, but let's see. If I get booted out or something, Chris, you can talk while I get back in here. So I'm going to hit record here. So if it's a student, they get a little countdown, and they would be talking about fractions in everyday life. I'm just going to hit stop because it's getting really, really wonky. And if they recorded, they were fine with it, they would just hit the next button. And they would, oops, sorry, it's playing in my ear. They could review their clip, okay? I left editing on, so they can go in and add more to it if they wanted to. They can trim their clip. They can do a whole bunch of different things. They can go in again, add sticky notes, all those fun things. If they were done, they would just hit next. Now, it does ask you to snap a selfie. So the video on your end as the teacher, you would see just whatever photos they put up there. So I can snap a selfie. And then I hit next. So what happens is, as the teacher, as students start adding prompts, or sorry, replying to topics in the Flipgrid, display name, they just hit submit video. You'll get an email prompt. So whatever email you use, which is most likely your Google that you signed up, you'll get an email saying that so-and-so completed your grid. So now, as you see, I have a student response here. So I can go in and view it. I can reply to it. I can do a whole whatever, comment on it, whatever it might be. I have that students could see it, but they can't reply to it and things like that. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what Flipgrid can do. I know if you're following along, you know, hopefully I didn't go too fast for you, but if not, this is recorded. In the slide deck, I have some embedded videos as well that sort of highlight some of these things. Are there any questions? I'm going to go back to my slide deck in a second here, but that was just sort of a general overview of how to create a topic and create a grid.
Awesome, thank you. There are a couple questions, Mario.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'll just go back and read them to you. The first one's from Megan, who said some school boards don't allow teachers to use site store info outside of Canada. Is Flipgrid going to be allowed for those school boards? And you know why.
Okay. Yeah. So that varies region to region. So in HRCE, we have this sort of, there's a whole process to getting apps and things approved in terms of privacy. I won't get into the ins and outs of that, but it is available in HRCE. If you go to, these are for, I know I assume everybody here is a GeneSpace user, but maybe not. If you're a SEPNA user, on the landing page, there's the site that on the top of the GeneSpace, once you log in, there's a site there that says, I forget what it is. Chris, maybe help me out here. It's an e-learning, and then you can go to the Department of Ed website there. So right on the top banner of the landing page, and there's a spreadsheet there that shows what apps have been signed off on for use in each region. Now, that being said, Flipgrid might be a little bit trickier. But it doesn't mean because that's not on the list, you can't use a specific app, and that's a whole other conversation. But reach out to a technology mentor in your region. If you're not sure what that is, reach out to me, and we'll kind of get you connected and maybe be able to provide some information. But yeah, it varies region to region. But I do know, like, I know Paul's in here. I'm pretty sure CCRCE has it open, and I think AVRCE also has it open. And beyond that, I'm not sure. I'd have to double check.
Very good.
Next question.
Yeah, we do. There's a number of questions regarding the translation feature. Will it read back in other languages besides English, like French? And that's from Sarah.
I haven't tested that. That's a really good question. So you're saying, yeah, if you write your prompt in French, Let me click on the Immersive Reader here and see what happens.
And that's perfect because there was another question about Immersive Reader. Can it go back into French?
So obviously I wrote this in English, but let me just click the settings here. Because I know the general Immersive Reader, the Chrome extension allows you to do that. Oh yeah, look. So this is translate though. Let me just test it here. This is a good question. I'm glad this was asked because I've never done this. So let's say I picked French Canada. Oh, I think I have to highlight it maybe. Oh, maybe not. No, it's playing in English. I'd have to play around with that. So there are translate options. But I'm not sure it didn't change anything on my screen. I'd have to play around that. So Sarah, and I know others asked some but similar questions. I'm not 100% sure at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the thing I put in the chat box just as a suggestion while you were doing your session is sign up and play with it yourselves and try it out, some of these things.
Yeah.
Next question was about adding a YouTube video in the focus area there. Can you?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah. So let's. Yep. So if you go to my, sorry, I should go to my grid. Sorry. I'm just gonna go in here. So in my topic, I'm gonna just go in and edit this topic. So that's the one I did about fractions. And then right here, so in my focus, yeah, if I didn't want to record myself, I want to add a YouTube video, I could click on that. And so I have to have the URL. So you have to find the YouTube video first, put that URL in, hit next, and then on their end, they would see that video on their screen. They could play it, listen to it, and then record whatever they have to record. So yeah, you just have to have the link, find that link first and paste it in there. You can't search YouTube within this.
Awesome. Next question is from Michelle, who says, can you turn off the email notifications?
You know what? I presented this when we're doing e-learning, a Flipgrid session, and I haven't found that. And that was asked then, and I couldn't find a setting to turn that off. Because even when you go into the settings, there's no like settings, just you can change your profile and things like that. But I haven't been able to, not within Flipgrid. The only other way is if you set up on your Google side of things, you can set like what they're called email rules, where you set a rule that any email from Flipgrid kind of goes to your trash or something. You can kind of do that. I haven't played with that a whole lot, but no, within Flipgrid, I have not found that option, unfortunately. Because I know if you're using it a lot, you could, every time somebody answers, especially if you teach like junior high and you have multiple classes or high school, you could, and use this over different classes, you could get a lot of email coming your way. But no, I have not found that, unfortunately.
Maybe that's coming in one of these updates that you were.
I never know.
Next question is from Leslie, who says, are other students in the class able to copy or manipulate a video response from other students?
I guess not within Flipgrid itself. I guess technically, like there's nothing like if they played a student video and held up their phone and recorded it, I guess just with anything, even if I was doing a Google Meet with my students, they could do that as well. Like there's nothing, yeah, that's not a Flipgrid thing. Like you can't edit or do anything within Flipgrid. That's just sort of a digital citizen thing where if they were recording somebody without their permission, but that could be anything that or even, I could take somebody's email and screenshot it and manipulate it. So not within Flipgrid, but I guess possible through other means.
I think I've caught all the questions in the chat.
Okay.
If I missed something, please let me know, folks, or post it there, or take the mic and ask Mario himself.
All right. So just because I am conscious of time here, and I don't know, I can't remember the schedule if there's a break, but another schedule for lunch or not. But I just kind of want to highlight a couple things you can kind of do at the beginning of the year if you want to use Flipgrid in September, or down the road a few weeks in, once we get a better sense of what school is going to look like in the fall. So one thing, if we are kind of getting back into e-learning at some point down the road, maybe it's a good idea to sort of capture student insight on that. So a lot of teachers did this in June. Because they kind of want to get student experience with what e-learning was about, where it was fresh in their minds. Summer's kind of passed here, but maybe if we do get in that situation, great way to know what worked for certain students, what didn't work, what maybe things that you did that a lot of students that you're going to have next year talk about that didn't really work for them. So just a way to kind of gauge information. You can use Flipgrid to kind of make that as your prompt about e-learning, challenges they had, maybe some aha moments. And it kind of helped you in your instruction if we do end up in that situation again. Another thing you can do as well, where everything with COVID is new and we're seeing new things and our lives have certainly changed. Maybe they could do a Flipgrid talking about their experience with living with COVID, and maybe it's to their future self, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So they can kind of do a Flipgrid talking about what it's like, what people should know about it, what precautions they have to make, whatever it might be. They can kind of create a Flipgrid based around that and meet sort of different outcomes with language arts, things like that. So it's already been announced that things like Meet the Teacher, Parent Teacher are going to be virtual this year. So why not use Flipgrid for parents to get to know the school staff? Maybe not that you need responses, people to reply to it, but maybe staff you create a topic called, here's the staff at, John Smith School. And then each teacher kind of creates a reply that, talks a little bit about themselves. Or meet the teacher, or maybe wait for parents to give you a little bit of information about their students, whatever it might be. Just a way to sort of connect, not necessarily with students, but with the community that you work within. Again, somewhat similar maybe to the first one a little bit, but just having students reflect upon a challenge that they had during their time and how they turned that challenge to a success. That's kind of a good way to kind of know your students a little bit in the fall, how they sort of tackle problems, situations, what strategies they use. So just having them share, it doesn't have to be school related about a math problem that they overcame or developed something, maybe just something that happened in the summer. So just a way to kind of get to know them and how they sort of tackle situations will give you a little bit of insight into them as well. This is something that you could start kind of in the fall and kind of continue along throughout the year, but kind of use Flipgrid as a best work gallery. So have students kind of at different times of the year collect things that they've done in class, or it could be something that they've done outside of school, and have them just record and talk about it, what the accomplishment was. Maybe they just completed a project, maybe they got a medal for something, they were in a virtual choir recital or something, who knows, whatever it might be. But just have them sort of collect these artifacts throughout the year. And then by the end of the year, they would have certainly kind of like a digital portfolio of their highlights throughout the year of different things that they, that happened to them. So just that's something that you could start in the fall and kind of be something that they work along throughout the year. Kindness challenge. So having students spread kindness doesn't have to be, I have here listed as one day. Hopefully they're spreading kindness over multiple days, but maybe just one of those times they can kind of talk about how they shared kindness. Then you'd have a good array of examples of how students share kindness, are kind to others, and they can use those as examples to share with others as well. I haven't come up with this saying, but I know pretty certain, hopefully you agree, that a person who's appreciated will always do more than expected. So why not share that appreciation for others by using Flipgrid and creating a positive school culture? Take a moment for students, maybe thank a parent, a friend, a classmate, teacher, school staff, anybody that's sort of connected to the school, and just why they appreciate that person. It'll kind of contribute to a positive school culture, and highlight sort of excellent things that are happening within school or in your greater community. So a way to kind of collect and archive those as well. For a lot of you, you're probably going to get new students in the fall, so maybe just put a Flipgrid out there to gauge students, to let them know what is it they want to, what are their goals for the year? What is it, something they want to learn? Maybe the past 3 months there was something that they kind of want to do and they didn't get a chance to do. Maybe they can share that things that are areas that they feel that maybe they need more support in. So a way for you to get to know your students a little bit, have them talk a little bit about themselves, what goals they have for the upcoming year. That's a way that you can kind of get to know your students as they come into your classroom this year. which is related to this one here, classroom introductions. Okay, so you can just put a prompt, tell me a little about themselves. It doesn't have to always be school related, just their interests. You know, what do they do outside of school? Do they come from a big family? You know, do they have one device that's shared between 3 kids? You know, just little things like that. Their hobbies or interests. So, you know, kind of that culture responsive pedagogy, just a way that you can kind of get to know your students in a better way. And these are just a couple of bonus ones here that I'm just throwing out there. Not could be things you do in the fall, or it could be ones for later on in the year. But using Flipgrid for book talks, would you rather questions, weekly check-ins, what if scenarios, exit tickets, video journals, interviews, debates. So there's a whole bunch of ways that they can be used. You can record an ongoing story, so you can kind of have where one student, if you had it open where students could reply to each other, maybe a student starts off a story, then the next person continues the next part of the story, and then the next student continues the next part. And you kind of get a story that's developed by all the students. Activating prior knowledge on a subject, which was kind of what I was trying to highlight there with the fractions. Maybe if you're starting a new topic, you just kind of want to, or a theme, working on a new outcome, you can kind of put that out there and have students sort of give you some insight of what they know about that. Weekly journals. I do have a link here. It's called Flipgrid Augmented Reality. And if any of you are on Twitter, some teachers have done this year. What happens is, so when I post that fractions topic, I have an option for each student response to create a QR code based on their response. And so anybody could scan the QR code and they would see the video response. So what some teachers did this year is when they had parent-teacher, when we were meeting in person, when they had parent-teacher, as parents were waiting to meet with the teacher, they had every student's picture outside their classroom with this QR code. And the QR code, everybody did a little differently. It might have been just talking about what they like about school or work that they've done in school. So the parent, as they're waiting, could just scan the code of their child while they're waiting to meet with the teacher, and they would know a little bit about what work the students have been doing in the classroom. So you can create QR codes with that. Again, depending on what school looks like and how you use that might be a little different. But I have the link there, so you can just click on it and it tells you how to do that. You can use it in phys ed, demonstrating sort of skills in phys ed, music, art. I know a family studies teacher that had students talk about how to make grilled cheese. So they kind of record themselves making a grilled cheese sandwich while they're at home the last 3 months, talk about the steps to make grilled cheese sandwich. So just whatever they might be. And then any other, I don't know if anybody else has any others they wish to share, or maybe they know of, or maybe they've tried, you're more than welcome to share that as well. So I'm going to kind of end it here. What I will do is I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to post this link in the chat. So again, I did mention it will be on the Summer Learning Academy website. I haven't posted that or given them access to that yet, but I will put this in the chat here, so you are more than welcome to grab this and use it. And Chris, I don't know if there's any questions or not.
Yes, there is, Mario, and I will just say to everybody, it's great to see everybody collaborating and making suggestions on some of the things that weren't known. You're sharing what you know, so that's great. The question was here, is it possible to have a student view of your grid?
Mm-hmm. And I probably clicked on the wrong thing there when I did it, but yes, there is. When you go to your main area and you go back into your grid, there'll be an option to say view a student, and you can click on that and kind of go through it.
Next question, is there a way to have students submit without other students seeing the videos?
That, no. Unless there's a setting I missed, I haven't seen that.
Again, maybe that's another feature that will be coming.
Yeah, but that is, yeah, because I know there is some concerns around that. Yeah, but I can understand the question where it's coming from.
I think there is a way. You can choose when you post your own video, you can choose to moderate all the videos that come through. And when you get notification of a new video being received, you go in and you choose whether to make that active or leave it hidden. And if you leave it hidden, the video is then only viewable to you as a teacher and not to the other students. But you have to set the settings on your topic or whatever that you post ahead to that all videos need to be moderated by you before, like, they need to be approved in order for that to work. Because I had several students that were not comfortable sharing in my 2-3 class. And when I did that, that helped those students.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So moderating on, and then once you moderate it, just keep it hidden. Thank you. Anything else that popped up? If not, I'm sticking around. Chris probably sticking around because I think he has to stop the recording and all that fun stuff. But appreciate you coming. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the time at IT Camp. And yeah.